What is up guys, Daniel here and welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm gonna be teaching you everything that you need to know about using layers in Affinity Photo on the iPad. So what are layers? You can think of layers like sheets of paper stacked on top of each other that are organizable, tweakable, with the one on top obscuring the ones on the bottom. What makes layers in Affinity Photo or any other photo manipulation program for that matter really powerful is that you not only are able to organize these sheets of paper, but you can also add different effects. You can hide certain parts and reveal others. Stuff like that makes it a truly flexible feature that if you don't get it from the get-go, it's gonna be really hard to improve. So without further ado, let's go back to the iPad and let's teach you about layers. Everything you need to know. Let's go. Alright, so now that we are back on the iPad, let's open up Affinity Photo, shall we? And now I'm going to begin by opening a new document by going up to the plus button, and I'm going to go to, in this case, I'm going to import from Photos. I'm going to go check out the album I made for this video. Alright, I'm just going to choose one of the photos here, just to show you. So by default, when you're opening a project, they all come with at least one layer, right? So where can you find it? You go to the Layer Studio, which is on the right, top right toolbar, this little disc thingy, right? It looks like kind of like a sandwich almost. And this is the most important thing when it comes to layers, the Layer Studio. We have one photo imported into the application and it's highlighted right here. This is one layer, right? Or one sheet of paper. Let's say I want to add another photo to show you this sheets thing. So I'm just gonna drop random photos down on the canvas here, or workspace, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see, as I put these photos down, they appear right on this thing, kind of a little bit crazy looking. So I'm just gonna resize it a bit, you know. Like my paper analogy, they're paper stacked on top of each other, with the one on top here as the one being shown, and at the bottom is the one hidden, basically. And then look what happens if I drag the one from the bottom and drag it all the way to the top. By doing so, it has become on the top of the list above all of the other pictures, and while the rest are hidden. To create a layer without having to drag a photo, you can just go plus here, and you have all these different types of layers that you can make, which I'll show you a little later in the video. Obviously, to select a layer to work with, you just tap it, and as you can see, it just highlights the one that you are currently working on. You can hide the layers. For example, you don't want to see it right now. For example, this one of the building, you can just press this little check mark. Once it's gone, it's hidden forever. It's not deleted, it's just hidden. Press it again, back again. Tap this again, hide that. Tap it again, bring it back, right? Simple. Let's say you wanted to lock one, right? You don't want to, like, what if I'm working and then I accidentally move it away like that? I'm gonna two-finger tap to undo. We can go to this little three-dot menu here, tap it, and we're greeted with a whole bunch of stuff that you probably don't understand right now. But what you do need to know is here, there's a lock button. Once you lock it and you go back, I can't move it anymore, you see? I can move everything else because it's not locked, but the one that I locked, it just stuck there until I go back to the menu and unlock it again. Oops, not this one. This one. And you can see it's denoted by a lock icon here, which you can tap here to unlock it, or you can just go here, press unlock, right? Or you can just come here and tap it and it's gone, right? And you can move it again. Now let's say you are working and you wanted to select more than one, you know, layer to move. For example, I'm going to tap this one, just to make it smaller. I'll make this one right here. I'm gonna hide the rest so we can kind of see what's going on. So let's say I have these two images over here, and I wanted to move both of them at the same time because I like where they are, but I don't like where they're at. So you can select one, but if I do this, I can't select both of them. How do you do that? So first you select one of them, and then the next layer you swipe to the left. As you can see, by swiping to the right, deselects it, and swiping to the left selects it. And now that they're both selected, I can just move them around equally. I can resize them. So what if I wanted to select like multiple, but a lot of stuff, right? Sure, you can do this, 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 and this, but there's an easier way. To do that, you just tap the first one, right? Tap the first one with 2 fingers, you tap the last one, and every layer in between those 2 layers, they get selected. And let's say, for example, you didn't want this one anymore. Just deselect it with a right swipe, or bring it back with a left swipe. You can rename your layers if you just tap the layer that you want, go to the 3-dot menu here, and where you see background, that's just like the default name that I guess it gives to photos sometimes, right? Whatever the photo was saved as. So all I have to do is tap it, and this thing comes up where you can just type the name. So I'm just gonna call it Brian, because that's the person's name. It changes it right here, and you can just go back and you can see that the name has been changed. Okay, so just as you are able to create layers, you can also group them up. So to show you this, all you have to do is select one of these layers and another one, right? And then you go up to this icon right here in the middle. This is the grouping icon. So as I press it, it will group it up, and just like layers, you can go to the 3-dot menu over here and you can rename it to anything you want, right? So I can call it Cool Group. Alright. Let me do it again with this and the other picture, these 3. I'll group them up. And what's cool is you can also group groups. So if I go and select this group here, right, and I press the group button, I'm grouping 2 groups, and within each group has their own pictures. The next thing I want to talk to you about are the different types of layers that exist in Affinity Photo. There's the pixel layer, mask layer, adjustment layer, fill layer, and vector layer. There are also other types of layers like pattern layer and live filters that you can use. Simply put, a pixel layer is basically any layer that is working with raster objects, which is basically pixel work, right? So it's like when you zoom in, if you zoom in too much, it starts getting blurry. That is raster, right? So any photo that you import, like using that drag and drop gesture, will be a pixel layer, which is a raster layer. Now, if I were to go to the brushes, right, and I'm just gonna choose a random color, a random width, and then I just draw on it like that, right? It draws right on top of the picture, and that means if I keep it like that, right, it stays there. I can't edit it anymore. That's not what I want. So I'm gonna double tap 2 fingers to undo. The better way to do it is to add a pixel layer on top, right? And because pixel layers work with obviously pixels, you can draw on top of this. Like on this layer, you just draw, right? And as you can see, this pixel layer is the one that has the hearts. So that means that if, for example, I just decide, one day I don't really want the hearts on it, I can just hide it, right? Or delete it, and it doesn't ruin the original photo. So that's one of the powerful things about layers, is like you just work non-destructively. A fill layer is exactly what it sounds like. It fills the thing with color or gradient. For example, if I go plus and then I go to fill layer, which is the second one, what happens is it creates a new layer and it puts a solid color in here, right? And now you can go to the color panel, and you can change it to anything you want. And if you want a gradient, you can go here, right? It's already selected actually, the gradient tool. And then you can just drag to do a gradient. If you want to change the color, you see these two dots. Color, you change this one to pink, and then look at this, you tap that, go back to the color wheel, change it to orange, and you can play around with, you know, the extent of it. And that's what fill layers are. Vector layers are layers created whenever you're using lines, shapes, using the pen tool, using text boxes, and stuff like that. Now, if I were to go to the text tool and draw a little shape, I'm gonna type something, type hello, right? This thing is now a vector layer, right? Why vector? Vectors, they work differently than a raster because in the most simplest terms, you're able to zoom in. Basically, it doesn't lose quality as you zoom, is what I'm saying. Because see, look here, you can already see that pixels are a little bit, see, you can see the raster stays good while the pixel, well, blurs a little bit. So that's the cool thing about vector, right? So when you're doing shapes as well, these are all vector layers. And then you have the pen tool, the node tool. You can change that to pen tool and you'll start making your own wacky shapes. You're not seeing anything because in the color picker, the fill, which is the color inside, is nothing. So if I change it, you can see now there's something here, right? All of these layers that I just drew kind of haphazardly are vectors, vector layers. Adjustment layers are layers that contain information that basically adds an effect or like tweaks a photo's properties. When placed, they affect everything below it, and they can also be pinned to certain layers. So a layer can actually go under another layer and only affect it. So let me show you that. So here in this little box with some circles inside of it is the adjustments. And you can see you can adjust brightness, contrast, black and white, color balance, curves, gradient map, and all of that. So let me add a lens filter, right? And if we go back into the layers panel, look what happens. Another layer appears, but this time it's an adjustment layer. And it has mask properties, which we will talk about soon. Well, actually we can talk about it at the same time. So this layer is an adjustment layer, but the adjustment layers are also mask layers. So they allow you to be able to hide and show certain parts of the image. So for example, let's just talk about adjustment layers first. Let me just bring in another photo just to show you that, you know, you can, let's get this like so. All right, see, as you can see, let me put both of them here. Because the adjustment layer is in between this, right? Everything below it is affected, but everything on top is not. So if I were to drag this over up here, look what happens. The color of the building is turning yellow. And if I bring this all the way down, only the picture is yellow. And if I bring it all the way to the bottom, it's not affecting any of them, right? So if, let's say I had a bunch, right? And I don't want it to affect this at all, right? What can I do? I can just drag this and put it right in the middle, and as you can see, there's a line like this, but then there's also a line crossing another layer. By letting go, you pin it. It's now like pinned to the image that you did on. So you can see this arrow basically reveals that there's something underneath, and this adjustment layer is there for that. Now I can just always drag this wherever, and the adjustment layer is stuck on this picture only. And what's cool about adjustment layers is it's also a mask layer, which allows you to hide and reveal certain parts of the image. In this case, it's an effect, right? And so let me show you that real quick. Let me bring this back to the top, and we're gonna raise it up a bit. Let's say I only wanted, for some reason, this block to be the original color of the building. All I have to do is tap on the mask layer and then go to the paintbrush tool, which is right here. And with mask layers, the paintbrush tool works a little bit differently. So the only two colors that you probably would want to use is black or white. White reveals the effect, while black hides it. So I'm gonna hide it. So the effect that this adjustment, this lens filter adjustment does is it changes the color basically. So let's say I didn't want this to be affected by this adjustment layer. I can go down here in the contextual toolbar, change the width, the opacity, the flow, the hardness. I will lower it a bit, and now I can start drawing, and look what happens. The effect is disappearing from this photo. And if you check over here on the layers, you'll notice that there's a black smear on this white box. It just means that in this photo, there's an area that is painted black, which means the effect will not work. Like, it will not be applied to this area. And everything in white will have the effect. That is basically the power of a mask. And I think I will go through that a little bit in more detail in another video, but I just wanted to show you the power of it. Another fun thing I want to talk about is pattern layers, which are ways that you can take photos and turn them into patterns. So I'm gonna go to the selection persona, which you probably not know yet, but that's okay. I'm gonna quickly select this person, right? Quickly select this person from the image just to show you what pattern layers could do for you, right? Okay, now that I have this person selected, right? I can go over to the plus icon here in the layer studio and press pattern layer from selection. So whatever I just selected, I can turn it into a pattern. Look what happens when I click it. It looks pretty weird right now. That's because the original photo is still on top. I'm gonna hide that, right? And then I'm going to quickly create a little background by just drawing a square, changing the color to be a little less obnoxious. Maybe this color here. And I'm gonna take this rectangle that I just drew and bring it all the way to the bottom. As you can see, the pattern layer made a pattern, but as you can see, when I tap on the pattern layer, it only shows me one box. That's because that's the selection that is drawing the pattern from. So anything that I do to affect this one image here will affect all the others. So let's say I wanted more of these, right? I can just drag it. As you can see, it just keeps making more patterns. And this is really cool if you're making like designs that require patterns, right? So guess what happens if I modify the original image by drawing probably a mustache on him, you know? Guess what happens to all the photos? They all have mustaches, all of them. And this is the power of pattern layers, which are really powerful. You know, I could just draw, they all appear. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you got something out of it, you learned something new. And look forward to the next video where I'm talking about masking, which is my most favorite feature of any photo manipulation app. Like masking is at the core of what we all do, you know? So look forward for that. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.